What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Acts of Creation. Now in this lesson we look at some scales and how to approach scales on our 7-string. So I see a lot of people when they get a 7-string, they're not quite sure how to apply all the scales they know to kind of learn the new notes and learn the fretboard or expand their fretboard the way it works for them. You know, I see books and they put together these long 7-string scales, and that doesn't work for me. As you guys know, I like to approach scales as like a 1-octave scale pattern, and I think it'll be best if you kind of approach it that way. Right? Take these small 1-octave patterns and put them together to create longer runs and patterns that work for you. Okay? So we're going to be in standard tuning on the 7-string, and we're going to pick E minor, everyone's favorite guitar key. Alright? So we're going to base this 5th fret on the low string is E. Now we can play a scale behind that note, we can kind of play a scale right on top of that note, or we can play in front of that note. And that's the way we're going to do it, and then we can connect it to maybe some chords or arpeggios that we're familiar with already from playing 6-string. Alright, so 3 scale patterns. Scale pattern number 3 is going to be based off our pinky, scale pattern number 2 is going to be based off our ring finger, and scale pattern number 1 is going to be based off our first finger. Right? So starting with our pinky, this is our 1-octave pattern, right? We have 5 on the low B, and then we have on the next 2 sets of strings frets 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to play those with 1, 2, and 4. Now the next note on the 2nd fret is the octave. Okay? We'll go through all 3 patterns. Now let's step that up to the 5th fret, right? Middle finger now. So now we're going to have 2 notes on the low string. It's going to be 5, 7. And then the next 2 sets of strings are going to be 3, 5, and 7. And again, I'm going to play that with fingers 2, 1, 2, and 4. Okay? And now we end up with the octave of the root on our pinky. Okay? So now if we go with our first finger, right, on the 5th fret, we have 3 notes on each string. Except that one, when we only have 2, right? That's 5, 7, 8 on the 2 low strings, and then 5, 7. Okay, so those are our 3 string patterns. And now, regardless of whether you're a caged player or a 3-note per string player, analyze those scales that you already know, and you will find these 3 patterns. Comprise or make them up. Okay, so like I said, cool things. These scale patterns run into each other. Okay, what do I mean by that? So if I take pattern number 3 with my pinky, I'm going to end on my first finger. Well, guess what? I'm on my first finger, so now we can just play scale pattern number 1, which was... Alright, so we put that together. Right, and if I stay within those frets, I would be into my pinky, so then it'd be pattern number 3 again. But I'm out of room. Okay? Same thing for pattern number 2. Ends on my pinky, so guess what? I'm going to play pattern number 3. Now obviously when you cross from the G string to the B string, you have to account for the tuning. Everything is up by a half step. That does not change the pattern, just alter your shape. Okay, it's still the same pattern. Don't consider those new shapes. That's confusing. Alright? And then with pattern number 1, I land on my middle finger, so guess what? Pattern number 2. So like I said, those patterns run into each other. So now let's connect those patterns to maybe chords we know. Okay, so if we go to that D string and play E, we can have a nice minor chord here. That works really well. Or whichever chord shape that you know, right? I'm playing the minor 7, which is 2, 4, 3, 3. So now I can go. Right? Or I can go up this little arpeggio, little G major arpeggio, because it's E minor, same chord. Alright, now we do the same thing. in 5th position, we have this big E minor arpeggio. So we can now make that connection. Alright, and then we all know this chord, minor bar chord, 5th string on our A, and notice E. So 3 different E minor chords, and right there, and they all run into each other. Okay? Really nice way to kind of open up the fretboard. It's not too complicated. You're building on what you already know, or maybe breaking down some of those patterns that you already know into these 1-octave scale patterns. And then once you have them down, I would practice playing them legato or alternate picking or hybrid picking, whatever you're kind of working on, okay? And you know, and the same thing actually works for your pentatonic scales as well, right? You can only play your pentatonic scales 2 different ways. Same kind of idea, either before the root note or behind the root note, right? So I can have, there's that minor pentatonic or that minor pentatonic. It's the same concept applies. So I encourage you to try those out and explore your pentatonics. And look at your 5 pentatonic boxes and break them down into those 2-octave shapes, and you'll see that that's exactly what they are. So you can find a transcription for this lesson down in the description box below. You can find a link for the PDF or guitar profile, whichever one you guys use. And as always, let me know what you come up with. So until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.